What up, gang? Carolina Jackpot time coming at you. It is Thursday morning. I hope everyone is doing good today. We got a football game this Saturday afternoon in Williams-Brice Stadium. First noon-ish kick of the year at 12:45 p.m. over on the SEC Network. The Gamecocks versus the Oklahoma Sooners. Gamecocks are anywhere from a 5 to 5.5 point underdog against the number 14 ranked Sooners from Norman, Oklahoma. I'm going to get into that for just a second. But before we do that, if you're new around here, stay true around here, subscribe to the Carolina Jackpot channel, and please hit the thumbs up on this video. It helps me out, or so I'm told. We're right around the 14,000 subscriber mark. I forgot to check it this morning, but we were dangerously close to getting there. Next goal is 15,000 and then 100,000, because I'm sure we can definitely get there based on the trajectory of growth we've had over the first 12 or so years of this channel. Thank you for your support. Anyway, let's get into today's video. I want to make a pick and prediction on that video and talk about it just a little bit. I want to talk about some other college football topics too, by the way. Coach firings. This seems to be all the rage right now. Of course, we saw James Franklin lose his job at Penn State on Sunday afternoon after a career. She's been at Penn State since 2014 and won approximately 70% of his games. That wasn't good enough for Penn State, and after an embarrassing loss at home to Northwestern, coming off the heels of an inexplicable loss on the road to UCLA, Franklin is let go. Approximately 3 weeks after leading Oregon in overtime at home, approximately 9 months removed from being a play away from going to the national championship game. And it just shows you, I guess, you're only as good as what you did last week. Yeah, you got to feel bad for James Franklin. At the same time, you have to kind of admire Penn State's dedication to winning at a high level and winning championships. Won a couple of national championships there in the 80s. Haven't been back since. They want to be back. They should be back. They are a brand in college football, and they're going to do whatever they have to do and dump the money into getting that program that one level up. James Franklin was at rung 8.5 of a 10-rung ladder. Just could not get over that last hump, unfortunately. And it cost a good man his job, because I think James Franklin was a good man. I think he was a good coach. And he's going to land on his feet somewhere. A lot of people with, throwing out a lot of predictions. And I'm not saying that any of them are, well, I am saying some of them are kind of silly. James Franklin to Florida. James Franklin to Arkansas. I don't think James Franklin's a fit at Arkansas. Florida's not going to hire James Franklin because they think they're too good to have a coach who just got let go from his last job. They think their program is more prestigious than what it actually is. So I don't think any of those are going to work. I think the most logical landing spot for James Franklin is Stanford. It's an academic institution. He came from an academic type institution at Vanderbilt, had success there. Well, why not have success at Stanford? I think you could have more immediate success at Stanford than you could at Vanderbilt, to be honest with you. They have a rich football tradition. They've been good in the past. I don't know what happened to them. It seems kind of like around 2019-ish, kind of right before the pandemic, Stanford just fell off a cliff. They had some really good teams kind of in the late 2010s, and then just all of a sudden they just disappeared, and they've never been able to recover. So I think that would end up being a good hire there. The future of Billy Napier at Florida seems to be constantly in jeopardy. He's getting fired next week. He'll get fired if he loses this game. Is he going to get fired here? I heard the Florida superfan Octavian calling into the Pigskin Pete show last night, which I was listening to it on my AirPods while I was putting up chips at the last stop I did. I have to go to bed as soon as our podcast is over with if I stay up late. Other nights I try to get in bed by like 8:30. Seriously, I do. To get my rest in, get my beauty sleep. It's not not doing a lot of good right now, though. But this guy is perpetually getting fired next week. Octavian calls in with the gibberish that he's getting fired on Sunday, that he's heard this from multiple sources. First of all, I don't think they let you know that you're getting fired before you get fired. That's not generally how it works. Normally, you also get fired after you lose a game. So they haven't lost this Saturday's game yet because it's Thursday. Also, Florida is likely to win their game against Mississippi State. So firing the guy after winning a game would be just totally wild. I think they're around a 10-point favorite against Mississippi State. Now, newsflash, I think Florida beats them by a couple of touchdowns. I don't think Mississippi State is not all that we made them out to be after beating Arizona State and after playing a close game against Tennessee. I think Florida could actually blow them out. He was angry about Billy Napier losing to what he called the Rump Rangers, which would be Texas A&M. Look, you weren't expected to win that game. You were an underdog in that game. If you had beaten Texas A&M, it would have been a pretty, I'm not going to say it was a massive upset. It wouldn't have been a mild, it would have been a medium-sized to large upset if you had beaten Texas A&M. Nobody thought you were winning that game, and you didn't. So firing him for losing to them just wouldn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Right? So now, getting into the Gamecocks game against Oklahoma. Of course, Oklahoma's coming into this matchup 5-1. They dropped their first game last Saturday in the Red River Shootout, 23-6 to Texas, in a game where Oklahoma was actually favored. I went the other way and picked Texas in that matchup, and I was correct in that matchup. Texas defense just had way too much for Oklahoma, and kind of banged up quarterback John Mateer. Had thumb surgery less than a month ago on his throwing hand, and he came back in a valiant effort on Saturday, and the guy clearly should not have been playing. He was not the quarterback that he normally is, and Oklahoma's offense definitely runs through John Mateer. He's the second leading rusher on the team, obviously the leading passer on the team. If he could be the leading pass catcher on the team, he probably would go on ahead and do that too. He's everything for that Oklahoma offense and for them to go. And bringing him back early, in my mind, was coaching malpractice, and it was a very selfish move by Brent Venables and that staff. Why would you do that when you're undefeated? You can lose a couple of games. You look at your schedule, you look at that slate you got coming up. LSU, Alabama, you got Ole Miss on that slate again. You got the game at South Carolina, which we're going to talk about. Not always going to be a walk in the park. You got a lot of losable games there. You would think that you finish up 9-3, and against that schedule, and one of the losses is to Texas, and you've sat your starting quarterback, you can use that as leverage with that playoff committee. And I know you don't directly talk to the playoff committee, but I'm saying they may use that and take it into account. They used that to keep Florida State out a couple of years ago, saying that the quarterback who was key in their success wasn't going to be available. Well, John Mateer being key in their success against Texas, not being available in that game, should also help Oklahoma in that regard. If we're going to play it one way, we've got to play it both ways. I just think it was a bad move. I think you could have started Michael Hawkins. If he started struggling, then maybe you bring Mateer in. Maybe you try to run a two-quarterback thing, do something. But that wasn't a very smart move for that dude and that dude's future. But he also probably had a hand in that too. A hand, get it? He probably had his hand. He needed to put a hamburger helper hand on that glove, didn't he? What if he came out with a hamburger helper hand on that glove, on that hand of the glove on the hand where he was throwing the football? Yeah, that didn't land too good. But anyway, not a smart move there by those folks. They have the number 1 defense in the country, number 9 rushing defense, number 2 against the pass. Does not great for South Carolina when you take into account our offense has kind of struggled this year. Well, it hadn't kind of struggled, it's really struggled. And we've got a new offensive line coach taking over this week in Sean Elliott. Which, unfortunately, having to go up against this bunch in your first trial run with that new offensive line that you're coaching up, they may not look as good as what they are going to look down the road, just based off playing an extremely physical, an extremely volatile, and extremely disruptive front seven in that Oklahoma defense. Now, offensively, as I said, everything's kind of going through Mateer. 6 interceptions, 6 touchdowns on the year. 3 of those interceptions were against Texas. So still at 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, it's not a great touchdown to interception ratio by him. Even prior to that, he is turnover prone. He will turn the ball over on you. Is South Carolina going to be able to cause a turnover by John Mateer? I say yes. South Carolina actually leads the SEC in forced turnovers. So, for all of the crappy stats that people want to talk about with South Carolina's offense, they failed to mention that. They also failed to mention their special teams prowess on occasion. And they still lead the SEC in punt return touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, even though we haven't had one taken back since week 2. 3 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. It's crazy. I think teams kind of picked up on that, and they're just bound and determined not to let Vakari Swain take one to the house. But that doesn't mean that he can't. What else are we looking for in this matchup here? Gamecocks defensively, I think, will be able to do enough against Oklahoma to keep this game kind of low scoring. Unfortunately, I think that Oklahoma's going to be able to do some things here to keep it even just as low scoring on our side. South Carolina really struggled against LSU to get the ball in the end zone. When you look at it, though, South Carolina actually moved the ball pretty well on the ground, right at 200 yards rushing, best rushing output on the season for the Gamecocks. And a lot of people want to point to not C.J. Fuller. He played for Clemson. He's not even he passed away too, I believe. I kind of feel bad about saying that, but he did pass away a few years ago. So sorry about that. Matthew Fuller for the Gamecocks. People want to talk about, well, you had a 72-yard touchdown, and that was, it was a fluke run. Why the fuck is it that we always, anytime a team that you don't like does something positive, and then they lose the game or something like that, we call it a fluke. The kid had a 72-yard touchdown run. And then we also kind of have this misnomer out there that the assistant coaches and the running back coach and all that, they thumbed their nose at Shane Beamer when he told them to put him in the ball game and blah, blah, and all this. Look, I'm not a Shane Beamer guy. I'm not a huge Shane Beamer supporter. You guys have seen this on here. I have complained multiple times about his coaching style, about his inability to hold people accountable, about his just a general snappy attitude with the media when they're just asking him questions about a damn loss, wanting to try to gather information for the fans, because that's who the media spills their information out to, is the fans. And just various other quirks that I cannot stand about the guy. But I will say this, in this one, he is not wrong. He did not get his nose thumbed at, or whatever you want to. They didn't just blatantly blow him off. What the man said was, after he had the 72-yard touchdown run late in the first quarter, he then noticed at halftime that Matthew Fuller hadn't had any more carries, and he let them know at halftime, hey, let's get Matt Fuller the ball in the second half. The reason why he didn't carry the ball the ensuing possession was because it wasn't his turn in the rotation to come up. They didn't thumb their nose at him. He said, let's get him the ball in the second half. What did they do in the second half? They got him the football. He carried the football in the second half. I think 5 times for 10 yards. So he didn't have a great second half. Shout out to whoever that was in the comment section that pointed that out to me after last night's live show. The YouTube is doing some crazy thing where they're doing the @ whatever in front of your name, and oftentimes it doesn't match up with what your YouTube handle is, which is extremely annoying. We don't know who's who. But thanks for that, for pointing that fact out, for all of the idiots out there who just constantly want to try to drag South Carolina down even further. Look, our offense hasn't played great this year. I think our defense has played good based on the amount of returning talent that it had. It's not upper echelon of the SEC. It's not going to be. Okay? I just got to be real with you. It's not going to be. But it's serviceable enough, and it's going to keep getting better. And we'll get back to a high level very soon, okay? Now, how do I think this game's going to go? I think that scoring chances are going to be limited here on both sides. I think South Carolina's defense is going to stiffen up. I think they're going to play a good game. I think South Carolina's offensive line is going to play a good game. I think you'll see the pre-snap penalties probably cut in half. Yeah, you're not going to totally wipe out the pre-snap penalties 100%. Right? It's just that doesn't happen with anybody, and it's definitely not going to happen with South Carolina. You don't go from the shitter to the penthouse in a week. You don't. But I think this line is going to play more inspired. I think they're going to play more physical. And I think that they're going to play more disciplined in terms of the penalties. Are they going to play more disciplined in terms of playing their gaps and, sliding their protections over and doing the stuff they're supposed to do there? Again, I don't know. A lot of that's got to do with your footwork. And if they've had bad footwork this year and developed bad habits there, I don't know that Sean Elliott's going to be able to coach it out of them in a week. It may take longer than that. And as I stated earlier, this is not the front seven to be like using as your guinea pig for your new shiny toy. This is simply not. I think at the end of the day that probably we're going to see that John Mateer has progressed since last week. I trust Brent Venables more as a head coach than I do Shane Beamer. I just do. I mean, Brent Venables is a good coach. Shane Beamer's kind of a dope. I'm kind of out on him right now. Now, I know I just went on a big tirade here defending him, and I did because he wasn't in the wrong there, but there's still just so many things, so many disappointments that I've seen this year that I just cannot pick the Gamecocks in this game to win this one. I think this is going to be a kind of what Josh Pate calls a knife fight, a rock fight, whatever you call it. I think it may get a little sloppy. There may be a couple of turnovers involved. I think points, as I said, are going to come in a premium. Field goals may play a part in this one. And I'm just really not confident in our field goal kicking game either. By the way, it's every unit we got, right? William Joyce last week didn't nail a 46-yarder, but then he missed another kick that was maybe in the 50-yard range, I want to say. Missed it badly. I mean, it was really, really wide right. I mean, he could have probably potentially turned around and kicked the ball towards the other damn goalpost, and it been just as close as that one was. It was that far off. I just got to be real with you. So, I'm going to stop saying that in a minute. I'm going to take Oklahoma to win this game. I'm going to take them to cover, and I think that we're looking at a final score of Oklahoma 20, South Carolina 13. I think they get a touchdown at some point early in the fourth quarter, and South Carolina's just not able to answer it. I think with the 13s that we see there, I think we see a touchdown by each team and a couple of field goals by each team to lead us up to like a 13-13 tie. And I think Oklahoma breaks it early in the fourth quarter, scores a touchdown, and true to form, the Gamecocks just peter away a couple of chances to score late in the contest, and we're just cooked. And South Carolina drops to 3-4. and for the first time since the end of the 2023 season, actually has a losing record at some point. So I see that's how that one plays out, guys. Wish I had some better news to give you, but I don't on this front, unfortunately. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. I will see you all later on. I appreciate you. Peace, and I'm out of here. Go Gamecocks. Woo!